allegations are by prisoners who were left behind at the prison. What the idea was that this was an attempt by guards to get information about the escape?
Exactly. In the hours and days after the escape, obviously there was a frantic search for these two inmates who were extremely dangerous, both convicted murderers, convicted of gruesome crimes. And it seems that in the rush to try and find information, correction officers, according to these accounts, used tactics that may have violated departmental policy. They punched inmates in the face, knocked their heads against walls, choked them, put bags around their heads.
Do you know about how many inmates this allegedly happened to?
We spoke to or contacted about 10 of these inmates, and through an organization called Prisoners Legal Service, we found out about a total of over 60 inmates who are making similar complaints about abuse, about being thrown into solitary confinement afterwards, and about moving around and losing a lot of their property. A lot of their property was thrown out, lost, or damaged. So that's some of the complaints.
And did they started filing complaints? The prisoners. I mean, who did they go to file complaints?
A lot of them filed complaints to this Prisoners Legal Services. Okay. This represents indigent inmates. We contacted several of them through their wives. We've been in contact with a number of the wives of inmates from the very beginning, and began reaching them that way.
You talked to an inmate who was in the cell next to Richard Matt. And Governor Cuomo had actually spoken to this inmate, and I think we actually have some of that exchange on camera. Let's listen.
That's solid. Must have kept you awake with all that cutting, huh?
So the obviously, you know, he's sort of intimating that the guy must have heard something, but the guy, what did he tell you? That he got in trouble for that exchange? The
assumption obviously was these individuals these two, Richard Matt and David Sweat, cut through the back of their cells using hacksaws, so it had to have created a sound, which is an obvious assumption. This inmate, Patrick Alexander, who was a neighbor of Richard Matt, said he heard nothing and was sort of baffled by all of this. Nevertheless, he was taken and interrogated several times. On one of these occasions, taken to a broom closet, beaten up fairly badly. This was one of the individuals who had a plastic bag placed over his head, he claims, and was beaten in an effort to get information out of him. And when he didn't provide that information, or didn't provide the information that correction officers wanted, he said the beatings got more severe.
And what's been the response from the facility? I mean, do they deny this? Do they...
They don't deny it. They said that these allegations have been under investigation for some time, and they have turned over some of the complaints to the state's inspector general, which investigates various state agencies.
And are all of these inmates still in the facility?
No. After the escape, many of them were sent to various prisons around the state. Some of them stopping first for several weeks at a time in solitary confinement. And that's one of the complaints a lot of the inmates had, was that these were, they were some of the best behaved inmates at the prison. Many of them hadn't had many serious disciplinary infractions, and yet they were put into solitary confinement as if they had done something wrong, and then sent to different parts of the state, different prisons.
Where do things go from here? It's still being investigated?
It's being investigated. We know no names of correction officers who might have been involved in this. The state is the correction department says it's investigating. The state inspector general is supposed to be issuing a report in the next weeks and months about all of the security failings that
so the
went
inmates
into
didn't
this.
want to give you names of
The inmates didn't know the names. In fact, a lot of them told us that these beatings occurred. When these beatings were occurring, the correction officers doing the interrogations did not have the name tags that they typically wear on their uniforms, and so a number of them. A number of the inmates told us that they couldn't identify the correction officers. They were either from other facilities or other parts of Clinton, and they didn't recognize them.
Well, Michael Shwirtz, I appreciate the report.